I think I'm alive. Let's see. Am I alive? Let's see. Am I alive? Am I alive? Or am I in the Bardo state? In the between lives area? Not really alive. Not really. Tree-hugging Buddhist. I'm not in the Bardo state. I am in the live state. Not between lives. Ariel, good morning. I'm going to get my little thing here going on. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for somebody hit the like button. Isn't that, you guys, you guys are the best. You really are. You get it. You get it. So I got to get my thing set up. Sorry for this. Us old people get up early. Exactly. I like, I love this time of day. Even when I was young, I was on the kibbutz, and I had to get up. I had to get up before dawn to feed the cows and to move them in to be milked and milk them and all that kind of stuff. And I can remember getting up, and we've milked the cows, and we smell like cow manure, because that's what happens when you milk cows, especially in Israel. And we're done milking them, and the sun is out, and everybody else is getting up, but we've been up for hours, and we're walking, and the sun is rising, and the air is clean, and the birds are singing. And this guy from Britain, who was a friend of mine that I work with the cows with, he goes, "This is the best time of day." And I'm like, "You're right." And ever since then, I've considered morning as the best time of day. And the older I get, the more I enjoy it. I've also, I used to get very frustrated by waking up in the middle of the night. And the older I get, the more I would wake up in the middle of the night. And then I realized this is a great time to meditate, man, in the middle of the night. And one of the things that happens, it's just like a different quality. Your mind is in a different state, and it has a different quality. And so, like 3 o'clock in the morning, you're sitting there meditating, and you're watching your mind. After a while, you're good at this. Your mind will start dreaming, and you can be awake and watch your mind while it dreams. And that can lead to all kinds of insight, I found. So I'm no longer pissed off when I wake up in the middle of the night. I know that sleeps come, yep, less cluttered, less interruptions, everything. But sleep comes in cycles. And so if you go to bed at 10 o'clock and you wake up at 2:30, you've done a complete cycle there. And then if you stay awake for an hour or so and then go back to bed at 3:30 or 4 and wake up at 7:30 or so, you've had 2 cycles of sleep. And if you meditate between those, which I found kind of relaxes my nervous system, in a way that nothing else does. Man, you you feel rested when you spend your night like that. So and then you wake up in the morning and it's a fantastic morning. So I kind of do that. I kind of try to do that every night. So today, sorry, I got sidetracked right away. Tree Hagen Buddhist will get me sidetracked every time into some kind of Buddhist thing. April, good morning. I read somewhere a while ago that every hour you sleep before midnight is like 2 hours of rest. Yeah, I found that too. And so have my wives and girlfriends, where I can fall asleep like in 2 minutes, and then I am immediately like really deep sleeping and snoring really loud before they can get to sleep. And so, get hit with a magazine. If your wife or girlfriend reads before they go to sleep, you know, bam, hit you with a magazine because they get so frustrated that you can fall asleep so fast and be snoring in 5 minutes. They don't like that. Well, one or two didn't like that. I can't say they. So, Linda, good morning. So, I have an item I want to talk about today, which is the item of auditing, Scientology auditing as hypnosis. And this is kind of the results of my study after I got out of Scientology, and I studied hypnosis by hypnotists who have nothing to do with L Ron Hubbard or Scientology. I needed to do that in order to get what L Ron Hubbard was doing with auditing. And so most of this information that I am giving you today has to do with me right out of Scientology, really pissed that I'd been lied to by L. Ron Hubbard about all kinds of stuff. And I found that he had lied to me about hypnosis as well and auditing. So it has a kind of bias in it that is against Scientology and against L. Ron Hubbard. But the thing is that Scientology auditing exists objectively, and so does hypnosis. So biases tend to cherry pick both of these things. But, you know, we're all anti-Scientologists here, so we don't care. Okay, right? All right. So, hello. My name is Alonzo from Alonzo's blog. Good morning, hippie chick. I was 16 years in Scientology, dedicated Scientologist, and 15 years in anti-Scientology, dedicated anti-Scientologist. And now I am 9 years out of both, and I have been writing about each the whole time. The whole time. So, the topic today, as I said, is auditing as hypnosis, or hypnosis as auditing. So, one of the things I did, you know, I trained as an auditor, not very high, like I wasn't like a Serge Delmar. And then in course supervision, I wasn't like Nora Ames. Both of these people are much more highly trained, and they lived in the Sea Org, which is a much more dedicated culture of auditing and training than I was in. I was a student on course for these things. They lived it daily. So you got to take that into account too. I'm not claiming to be an absolute expert on Scientology technology, but I do know what I know, and there can be facts that I get wrong, and I hope that anybody, anything I get wrong, I hope somebody comes in and corrects it. So, first off, Hubbard taught from the very beginning. Hubbard taught auditors. See, Dianetics, A Modern Science of Mental Health is a book that he wrote and published on May 9th, 1950. And that book is a handbook on how to do auditing. And it was meant to sit somebody else down, a friend or a family member, read the book, and then they audit each other back and forth. There was no meter, there was an auditor's code, and that's it. Bon Jovi crazy. Okay, good. So that book laid out the basics of auditing. Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. And in that book, he talked about hypnosis quite a bit. And at the time, 1950, hypnosis was verboten. People really didn't like hypnosis. And Hubbard, being the PR guy that he is, and he wants to build a business that is, you know, incredibly popular, that may even take over the world, right? So he positioned his auditing as the opposite of this very unpopular thing called hypnosis. And what he taught Scientology auditors from the very beginning was that hypnosis puts you to sleep. Auditing wakes you up. See? So he positioned this Scientology auditing as the opposite of hypnosis. And he told auditors that, and in book one, there is this thing called a canceller. And a canceller is basically a hypnotic positive suggestion, okay, which says, let's see, what was the wording of the counselor was, you will remember everything that happened in this session, and you will be able to pull out of anything you don't want to get into at any time you want. So basically, it's a statement that the auditor gave to the pre-clear before the actual auditing. Yes, I did find grapefruit, and I'm going to get to that. That's the most important part of today's live, okay, is my report on what I went to the grocery store and got yesterday. But that comes after this, Patty. Sit down in the VIP section and be patient. So this counselor said that you are in control. You can back out of anything you want to back out of. You will remember everything that happened in the session. And the reason he said that is because he knows about positive suggestions in hypnosis, which are installed in a person's mind, in a hypnosis client's mind, that act as a governor for your thoughts and feelings that you want. That's the reason you go to a hypnotist, is for him to install a positive suggestion in your subconscious mind that keeps you. You don't want cigarettes. You don't want to smoke anymore. Hypnotists will say, I can hypnotize you out of smoking. I can install various suggestions in your mind that makes you not enjoy smoking, that makes you feel guilty, shameful, all kinds of stuff. I can install these things in your mind, and it will help you quit smoking. So Hubbard's saying here with the counselor that you're going to remember everything. I'm not going to install any kind of positive suggestions in your mind. Okay? Well, it's a crap. I'll tell why it's a crapshoot. There are too many variables. Can't really make that promise. And then you've got the person himself who wants to take on certain things, and he wants to get to be a particular way after the auditing session. So from the very beginning, Hubbard was training auditors to believe that they were not hypnotists. They were not putting people into hypnotic states. And we weren't installing positive suggestions. We weren't putting them to sleep. We were waking them up. We were bleeding off the charge, the harmful force or energy that's stored in the person's mind, their reactive mind. And that is refiling unconscious things into conscious things in their minds and waking them up. So another part of Scientology auditing, a fundamental, is you've got all this pain and unconsciousness stored in your reactive mind, which is not available to your conscious mind. And those moments of pain and unconsciousness will control your thoughts and feelings throughout the day. So when you walk into a grocery store and there's a dog in the grocery store, and what do you call that? They're called emotional support dogs. Okay, and you were bitten by a dog when you were a child, and you don't remember being bitten by a dog, but you've had a fear of dogs all your life, and so an auditing session, still a freak. Good morning. So an auditing session is designed to take that incident of being bitten by a dog and refile it into a conscious state where you can think and reason with it. This is the whole pitch on auditing. It is sometimes the pitch on regressive hypnosis as well. And that was like everything that Freud was trying to do, and Jung in the early days was trying to regress people into their minds to take these unconscious incidents that were causing them all these troubles and refiling them into the conscious mind so that you can think and reason. Like, okay, this dog that I see here in the grocery store is not the same dog that bit me when I was 5. And there's no need for me to be afraid of this dog here in the grocery store, except that the dog may go to the bathroom in the grocery store and it gets on all the groceries. But that's another thing. Okay, so that's the goal of auditing. The goal of auditing, Hubbard taught from the very beginning, is to take unconscious things in your reactive mind and through auditing, repeating these over and over, you examining every single detail, including the emotion in the incident. Okay, when you were 5 and you were bit by a dog, how did you feel? I was afraid. I was terrified. I was this. Thank you very much. Let's go to the beginning of the incident and run through it and see if you can pick up more emotions in that incident. Would be a possible question that the auditor would ask the pre-clear. In order to take all of these things that are not available to your conscious mind and refile them into your conscious mind, so that when you get out of the session, you're like, okay, that dog isn't the dog that bit me, and that dog is a really small little dog. The dog that bit me was a huge German Shepherd. This is a little Pekingese dog. Okay, so you're thinking and reasoning with this unconscious thing that you couldn't think and reason with before. You couldn't inspect it. So this is Scientology auditing from the very beginning of the subject. Yet, okay, when Hubbard says that this is not hypnosis, he is knowingly lying to auditors. And he is creating hypnotists while telling them that they're not hypnotists. So every single auditor, Scientology auditor, is actually a highly trained hypnotherapist, but he thinks he's not. Because for some reason, and this was true of me too, for some reason I never studied hypnosis when I was a Scientologist, because Hubbard told me everything I needed to know about it. So again, this is like one of the lessons I learned as a Scientologist, getting out of Scientology, and then I had to relearn it getting out of anti-Scientology too. So the thing about, here's hypnosis. So hypnosis was, the term hypnosis was, I've talked about this before, it was coined by a Scottish physician named James Braid, who worked with Sigmund Freud, and who believed that this state of mind that he and Sigmund Freud and other practitioners could get a person into was kind of getting into their, putting them a little bit to sleep. It was some kind of state that was similar to sleep, like when a person talks in his sleep. And so therefore, hypnosis, sleep knowledge, was the term he coined for this. But James Braid, with all this intimate knowledge and all these different people that he put into hypnotic states, began to realize this has nothing to do with sleep. This state of mind that I called hypnosis is not sleep at all. Instead, it is a state of being highly focused onto one thing to the exclusion of other things in the environment. And when a person does that, he often is not even thinking about how he's articulating his words, and he sounds like he's sleep talking, right? But he's actually just so focused in his mind onto one thing that he sounds like this. And here's the thing about hypnosis that I learned, okay? That being focused onto one thing makes you hyper aware of that one thing. Like, you can compare the state, a trance state, a hypnotic state, compare that to a state of mind when you're walking down the street and you're looking both ways to see that there are no cars coming. You cross the street and you're window shopping, and you're looking at all the different things on the window. You're looking at the faces of the people coming at you, and you're saying, you're on the ones that you recognize, you're saying hello, all that kind of stuff. That's a very different state of mind than a hypnotic state where you're looking at the time that the dog bit you when you were 5 years old, and you're getting more and more detail out of that particular incident in order to refile it from an unconscious state to a conscious state. And in both hypnosis and in auditing, you see stuff that you have put into the back of your mind, right? And so hypnotic states and auditing, states of auditing, are the same. And the structure of an auditing session is incredibly similar to the structure of a hypnotherapy session. In auditing, there is a thing called model session. In hypnosis, there are induction phrases, things that you say at the beginning, you structure the same, very same structure, nothing to throw the person off, so that he can get into an environment where his mind can focus onto this one thing they're going to pick up, both in auditing and in hypnotherapy. So these things are very, very similar to the point where you cannot distinguish them. Model session in Scientology is a hypnotic induction series of things. And then there's also the TRs themselves. The TRs themselves are designed to put a pre-clear into a hypnotic state, or a mono. I forgot. James Bray tried to, when he realized that this wasn't, it had nothing to do with sleep, he tried to change the word hypnosis to a new word, monoideaism, which was more accurate for this state of mind. And so, a pre-clear in an auditing session, under model session, and in TRs, with the auditor using TRs, keeps the pre-clear's mind focused onto the one answer to the one question. The auditor asks one question and gets one answer back. And then when that is done, the auditor completely acknowledges that one answer pre-clear gave him, and he asks another question. And there's nothing in the room to distract off of that one thing that the pre-clear is going to pull up in his mind, examine, and tell the auditor. That's called the what's it. The auditor says, what is it? To the pre-clear, and the pre-clear looks in his mind and says, it is a. And Hubbard called that, what's it? It's a. What's it? It's a. Okay? And so this is literally a hypnotherapy session, a monoideistic state. And the TRs are created for an auditing session to keep the pre-clear's mind focused on the one answer to the one question the auditor is asked. And it is those skills that a Scientology auditor drills over and over and over, produces an environment where a person can go into a trance or hypnotic state and remain there without being interrupted by the auditor. Now, I don't know of an analog in hypnotherapy technology similar to the TRs. I have an idea that over time the hypnotherapist learns that if you interrupt your client while he is, answering your hypnotic question, that you can pull him out of this monoideistic state. And they probably develop skills of being quiet, while the person's looking in his own mind, etc. Whereas Hubbard created this highly structured set of communication skills for auditors in order to put people into hypnotic states and keep them there. So that's why I say that auditing is a highly developed form of hypnotherapy, because in addition to model session and TRs and but an auditor doesn't understand that he's put a person into a trance state and he's keeping him there. He thinks he's putting him into a state that Hubbard called in session. The state of being in session is defined by Hubbard as interested in own case, interested in his mind and all the things in it, and willing to talk to the auditor. In session is literally a trance state. And the TRs, the end result of the TRs is a state of being in session. And this is all trained, it's all overtly written out in all kinds of policies and technical bulletins. And the Scientology auditor who is undergoing this training has no idea that he is a highly trained hypnotherapist, because Hubbard told him he wasn't. He was the opposite. So in addition to this hypnotherapy that has model session and TRs, that are drilled by the hypnotherapist in Scientology. There's a meter, okay, that is the purpose of the meter is to point out which incident has more charge, harmful force, or energy on it than another one, because you don't want to waste time running incidents that have no harmful force or charge on them. You want to find the one with all the meat on it that is causing the pre-clear all the trauma, to feel all the emotions that interrupt his life and make him dysfunctional in life. You want to run through that one. So the meter is a tool to find those big incidents and not waste time on the small incidents. And you can see that through the electrical activity of the body. And again, L Ron Hubbard and Volney Matheson did not invent the e-meter. Carl Jung himself in the 1920s actually used an e-meter. And if there's a great movie called A Dangerous Method by Carpenter, John Carpenter. Is that right? Was it John Carpenter? Anyway, it has Viggo Mortensen as Sigmund Freud, and who's the other dude? The German actor as Carl Jung, a young Carl Jung, and it's all about hypnotherapy, Jungian and Freudian hypnotherapy, and how they dealt with patients. And the very first 5 minutes of that movie is Carl Jung using his e-meter, auditing his wife, who thought she was cheating on him. Anyway, fantastic, and it shows. Do you have a chart that compares auditing to hypnosis and identifies the similarities? No, that chart definitely needs to be made, though, and I think maybe I'll spend the time to do that. I'm kind of laying them out here verbally, but it definitely needs to be done, because here's why. Hypnotherapists throughout the United States must be licensed, because people have known for many, many years that things can go wrong in a hypnotherapy session. And this idea of a positive suggestion, which takes you and makes you hate smoking, for instance, that can be abused. The hypnotherapist can think up a positive suggestion like, I make you horny, baby. Something like that, right? And he can abuse his authority as the hypnotist over your mind and make you do stuff. So therefore, all hypnotherapists are licensed. They're issued a license to be able to practice. And if complaints come in that can be proven that they have abused their power as a hypnotist over their clients' minds, their license get pulled. Okay? And they are no longer allowed to practice hypnosis. And if they are caught continuing practicing hypnosis, criminal charges can be brought against them. So it's highly regulated with licenses. I think Scientology auditors should also be highly regulated with licenses, if possible. Any kind of regulation is better than what we have now, because Scientology auditing is a highly developed form of hypnotherapy, and Scientology auditors are hypnotherapists. So they should be licensed or somehow regulated by an independent body who can step in when abuses have occurred. I believe that this is doable. Telling parents that they cannot bring their children into their own religion will produce a society that none of us want. We want a free society. We don't want to tell Scientology parents that they can't bring their kids into Scientology. Because what will that do? It will begin to tell Catholic parents that they can't bring their kids into Catholicism, etc., etc., etc. And pretty soon, we don't have a free society. See? So many of my, do I call them colleagues or fellow ex-Scientologists, who are going around and their whole emphasis is no kids in Scientology, etc., they are not thinking of the free society implications of this. There are other solutions that maintain a free society for all of us, but which still address the abuses and the actual criminality that can exist within Scientology with unregulated, unsupervised uh, hypnotherapy going on. The other thing about Scientology as a hypnotherapy is it installs the ideology of Scientology. Like you can't, if you're a pre-clear in an auditing session and your auditor has given you a series of questions to answer and you've looked at all these various things, and all of a sudden you have this realization and you say, Scientology is a fucking cult. And the meter is floating. I'm in a cult. I'm in a cult. This whole time I've been in a cult. Guess what? The auditor can't. Even though the meter is floating, the needle is floating, and you're laughing and crying, and you've got all these very good indicators that you feel way more free now. The auditor, normally with all those indicators, that's when you stop the session. Okay? The pre-clear has realized something and it's made him feel more free and he's happy about it. All right, end of session. Well, not when he has that particular realization. You can't allow a cognition, a realization that goes against the ideology. See? So that's another reason why Scientology auditing is not on the up and up, because it installs the ideology of Scientology. And that should be regulated too. I don't know how it can be, but that's what makes Scientology a fraud, is the ideology of Scientology. It is a circular set of simplistic answers about the world that cause the person that has adopted that ideology to think all kinds of stupid shit about the universe around him and the other people around him, like that guy's an SP, that guy's uptone, that guy reflects my belief system, therefore he's uptone. That guy criticizes or questions my belief system, so therefore he's a suppressive person. This kind of thing, once you adopt this ideology and it starts to weed out the people around you, it makes you, it makes you see the world in a particular way. And Scientology isn't the only thing that does this. Okay, communism does this, Christianity does this, Buddhism does this, etc. But when you have auditing to install that ideology, and then if you start questioning the ideology, have another hypnotherapy session that's designed to clean off all of your overts against the ideology so that you can reinstall it and get back to being a devout Scientologist again. Okay, that's the use of hypnotherapy to install an ideological viewpoint. All right, CC, thank you for being here. I would argue that the contract does not exempt the requirement of a license of existing laws on the books. The contract does not exempt. Yeah. The contract, there is no, well, when there's a criminal act, no contract trumps a criminal act. Okay, you can't, like an NDA, like you're a Scientologist at Int-Base, and you see all of these people committing criminal acts, and when you leave, you sign this non-disclosure agreement, and you can't talk about any of those criminal acts. Wrong. Yes, you can. NDAs cannot override the exposure of criminal acts. So, let's see. I don't know if I really understand your statement, CC. I would argue that the contract does not exempt the requirement of a license of existing laws on the books. Which contract are you talking about, CC? the contract you sign in order to get auditing. Because this is an important point, because I do believe that auditing should be supervised and regulated by outside agencies who know what hypnotherapy is and who know what Scientology auditing is. Uh, because this does need to be done. Something needs to be done, okay? But it needs to be something that can be done, and something that doesn't ruin a free society for all of us. So that's what I'm saying. Scotty's live, and I think Chad is bouncing. Yeah, that's right. I never want to step on Scotty's lives. I believe Scotty's lives are way more important than my lives. So I think I might cut off. We're at 35 minutes. I've said my piece about auditing and hypnotherapy, and I do believe that this is a very important and constructive direction to go in. I believe this. We, maybe Serge and Nora and all my other fellow exes disagree with me, and that is absolutely their right to do that. So I'm going to end this live and go over onto Scotty's live, because Scotty's live, I believe, are more important than my lives. So thank you very much. 14 people are here, 17 likes. Look at that. 14 people are here, and there are 17 likes. Thanks, Tree Hugging Buddhist. I'll see you over there. Bye-bye.